Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to navigate a stack of sources that really put security, vulnerability, and accountability under the microscope. We're looking at everything from the highest political offices right down to the deep sea floor. Yeah, our mission today is to sort of extract the core challenges in managing risk. We're seeing leaders exposed to some pretty severe danger, nations facing intense international pressure, and even individuals turning trauma into creative strength.
It's an amazing range, isn't it? We've got Mexico, Italy, Nigeria, France, Japan, all in the mix. And what's really striking, I think, is how often these pressure points, these moments of, well, failure or exposure seem to circle back to choices about vulnerability. That's what we want to distill.
Okay, let's dive right in. Let's start with a story that perfectly illustrates that intersection of gender, security, and political choice. It's the recent incident involving Mexico's President, Claudia Sheinbaum. She maintains a very visible profile, very accessible, much like her predecessor. So she's mingling with citizens, and there's this footage, it's everywhere now, of a man clearly intoxicated who gropes her. He tries to kiss her neck, embraces her from behind. Her immediate reaction, it was really measured, almost stiff, like forced smile. Don't worry.
Right, and that incident just exploded. Became a massive story for two key reasons, both hitting Mexico's central challenges square on. First, there's the staggering reality of sexual harassment. When she later decided to press charges, her reasoning was, well, it was the real gut punch.
Yeah, what did she say exactly?
She asked, if I do not file a complaint, where does that leave all Mexican women? If they do this to the president, what happens to all the other women in the country? And that quote, it just gains this terrifying weight when you remember the stats. The UN estimates, 70% of Mexican women over 15 have been sexually harassed. So even the president, in her most public moments, she's not immune. It shows you the scale.
And then there's the second issue, the security lapse. It was severe. Her security detail wasn't visible, wasn't quick to intervene. And this comes back to her deliberate choice, right, to keep that lighter security footprint.
Exactly. She argued we cannot distance ourselves from the people. A noble sentiment, perhaps, but
the price of that proximity is terrifyingly high. This isn't just about harassment. It's genuinely life and death in a country grappling with extreme political violence. I mean, look at the numbers. 37 candidates killed before the June 2024 election. Since she took office October 1st, 10 municipal presidents killed already.
And we just saw that heartbreaking example, Mayor Carlos Alberto Manzo Rodriguez, assassinated after he publicly asked for help against criminal groups. It's brutal. And you can't forget the history either. The 1994 assassination of Colosio Murrieta, the presidential candidate, or the 2020 attempt on her own current security minister, Omar Garcia Harfuch.
So choosing to stay close in that environment, it's an immense security gamble, a huge one.
It really is.
That choice, then this high price paid for political closeness, it leads us quite naturally into our next story. We're shifting from personal security to international accountability and the high price of political expediency. This involves Italy and Libya. Okay, so the story kicks off with a Libyan general, Osama al-Masri Najim. He was wanted by the International Criminal Court, the ICC, wanted for alleged war crimes, crimes against humanity, specifically torture leading to a prisoner's death, serious charges.
Right. And the initial news seemed like a big win for international justice. Najim gets arrested in Turin, Italy, based on that ICC warrant. You'd think, okay, great. But then comes the twist. Italy releases him just 2 days later.
Releases him.
Releases him. And not just releases him, they actually flew him back to Tripoli on an Italian Air Force plane.
Okay, wait. What was the official reason? How do they justify that?
Italy's official line coming from Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's administration was pretty vague. They claimed Najim posed a risk to national security if he stayed detained in Italy.
That sounds flimsy. If you're listening to this, you have to ask, was this really about security? Or was it about keeping a strategic relationship sweet? Specifically with Libya.
Well, exactly. It was almost certainly about the latter. Critics jumped on it immediately. They accused the administration of pandering to Libya because Italy relies heavily on Libya to stop migrants crossing the Mediterranean.
Ah, okay. And this connects to that controversial Italy-Libya pact from 2017, doesn't it?
Precisely. That pact gets renewed every 3 years. Italy funds and equips the Libyan Coast Guard. Humanitarian groups have consistently slammed it, arguing that the people intercepted are just sent back to detention camps in Libya where they face, systematic torture and abuse.
So Italy basically chose border control stability, political expediency over executing an international arrest warrant for war crimes.
Pretty much. And the final irony, the truly humiliating part for Italy. Libyan authorities themselves, and remember, Libya isn't even a party to the Rome Statute that governs the ICC, they later arrested Najim on the exact same charges Italy refused to act on: torture and murder.
Wow, so the leaders of a non-ICC state showed more commitment to accountability in this case than Italy did.
It perfectly illustrates how national political priorities, like migration control, can just completely undermine international justice mechanisms. It's a stark example.
Okay, so from the complexities of executing justice, let's pivot to the difficulties of defining conflict itself. We're moving now to the diplomatic strain between the U.S. and Nigeria. The U.S. recently took a pretty significant step. They designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, unquote. This label usually targets nations violating religious freedom, and the specific complaint here was about the killing of Christians by radical Islamists. It's a serious diplomatic move. Former President Trump even threatened fast military action if Nigeria didn't fix it.
And Nigeria's reaction was, well, swift and forceful. Their foreign ministry rejected the designation completely, called it unfounded based on misinformation. Their core argument is compelling, actually. They say they're fighting a broad counterterrorism campaign against jihadist groups that target Nigerians of all faiths, Christian and Muslim alike.
So they're pushing back hard.
Very hard. They urged the U.S. for dialogue, not what they called disparaging rhetoric.
And this is where the source material really resists those simple labels, isn't it? The context on the ground is incredibly messy. We know there's a serious jihadist insurgency, Boko Haram, Islamic State affiliates. It's killed over 40,000 people, displaced millions. That's undeniable. We also know there's severe violence between Fulani Muslim herders and predominantly Christian farmers, especially in the Central Belt.
Right. But if you dig into that farmer-herder conflict, security experts consistently point out something crucial. They emphasize it's driven primarily by competition over scarce land and water resources, made worse by climate change. It's not purely about religious hatred, although religion can be exploited.
And then you have the whole separate issue of bandit gangs in the Northwest operating almost indiscriminately.
Exactly. So this raises a critical question about definition. If resource scarcity and generalized banditry are major drivers of violence, is it accurate or even helpful for the U.S. to frame the core problem solely as systemic religious persecution?
It seems like Nigeria is arguing that the U.S. label just doesn't capture the nuance, the complexity of their struggle.
That's essentially their position. They see it as a multifaceted counterterrorism fight, tangled up with ecology and economics. And they feel the religious freedom label kind of obscures that full picture. It really shows how crucial and how difficult accurately labeling these global conflicts can be. Getting the label wrong can lead to flawed policy.
Okay, let's transition now. From the weight of global geopolitics and defining conflict, let's shift to something quite different but equally powerful: defining one's own identity through art and narrative. We're looking at the fashion world now. Specifically, the recent departure of Olivier Rousteing from Balmain after 14 years. His legacy there is just monumental. He took what was seen as a sort of sleepy Parisian couture house.
Right, very traditional.
And completely revived it. He fused high fashion craft with this pop-era bravado. He built the famous Balmain army.
The loyal stars, Rihanna, Beyonce, the Kardashians.
Exactly. And he used their massive social media muscle to totally refashion the image of French luxury.
And what's really pivotal about Rousteing, I think, is how he used his own identity to redefine that historically very Eurocentric brand. He was born in Bordeaux, adopted, later found out his biological parents were Somali and Ethiopian, and he didn't hide that he celebrated diversity and inclusion.
Making Balmain feel much more reflective of the modern world.
Absolutely. He really shifted the image. But the story of his personal resilience, that's just breathtaking.
This is the part about the accident, right?
Yeah. In 2020, he suffered severe burns all over his body in a fireplace explosion at his home, a terrible accident. And he kept this intensely private for almost a year. He was designing, working, leading this huge fashion house, all while concealing his injuries and going through recovery.
That's incredible. Designing while recovering from severe burns.
When he finally revealed it, posting this incredibly vulnerable photo of his scarred torso on Instagram, it was a profound moment. An act of real transparency. And crucially, his work changed. His subsequent collections, like the Spring 2022 show, became deeply infused with that experience.
How so?
He used motifs like corsets, bandages, protective gear, but reframed them. They weren't about restriction. They became symbols of healing, strength, survival, rebirth. He managed to transform a very private, very physical vulnerability into this powerful public cultural statement through his art. It's quite extraordinary.
It really is. Okay, let's end our global tour with one last fascinating piece of knowledge.
Yeah.
Totally unexpected from the farthest corner of the globe, well, the deep sea. It's a beautiful example, actually, of how vulnerability and cooperation can work in nature. Scientists off the coast of Japan recently discovered this new deep-sea anemone. It's called Paracaleactus tsukisum, and it has this amazing partnership with a hermit crab, Oncopaguris monstrosus.
Ah, yes. This is biological mutualism at its finest. It's fascinating. The anemone does something unique. It secretes a hard shell-like structure. It's called a carcinoecium.
A carcino what now?
Carcinoecium. Think of it like a custom-fitted suit of armor that the anemone builds around the crab's original shell. And the amazing part is this structure expands as the crab grows. It reinforces the shell, allows the crab to get much larger than related hermit crabs.
Right, so the crab gets a super shell that grows with it. It doesn't have to keep finding bigger empty shells like other hermit crabs.
Exactly. It basically eliminates that constant risky house hunting process for the crab. A huge advantage. And what does the anemone get in return? Well, it gets prime position to feed on organic particles stirred up by the crab, and also it feeds on the crab's feces.
Okay, maybe not the most glamorous diet.
Maybe not. But it's an incredibly efficient form of recycling down there on the nutrient-scarce deep sea floor. It's a perfect win-win survival strategy.
And the name, tsukisum, you mentioned. There's a story there too, right?
There is. It means pale pink. The name comes from ancient Japanese poetry, the Manushu collection. In that tradition, a kimono dyed tsukisum pink symbolized gentle yet sincere affection. So the name honors both the anemone's delicate color and the strength of this unique biological partnership. A lovely touch.
That really is lovely. So, wow. We've covered immense ground today. We've seen the profound price of political proximity for leaders like Sheinbaum in Mexico. We've looked at the tension between international justice and national expediency with Italy and Libya. We grappled with the sheer difficulty of accurately labeling complex global conflicts like in Nigeria. And we saw the incredible power of turning deep personal vulnerability into public resilience with Olivier Rousteing.
Yeah, and if you look across all these threads, politics, culture, even deep-sea biology, maybe the central lesson is about acknowledging and managing shared vulnerability.
Yeah.
It seems success and resilience often depend on that, whether it's the, metaphorical structure of political accountability or the literal physical structure of that anemone shell. The strongest systems, the most resilient ones, seem to be built through recognizing mutual benefit and being transparent about risk.
That's a great takeaway. So we'll leave you, our listeners, with this final thought to ponder. Considering the very real price paid by leaders like Sheinbaum for trying to maintain that closeness to the people and the kind of strength shown by Rousteing when he chose transparency about his vulnerability, how much is that accessibility, that transparency really worth when you weigh it against potentially severe personal and national security risks? Where do you draw the line? Something to think about as you go about your day.